Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Jay Sit Down podcast. I am your host, Jay, and I'm here today with Coach JT Wall. He's a head football coach at John Milledge Academy. So glad to have him on the show today. Talk some ball with us, Coach. We appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate all you do.
Yes, sir. So, Coach, you actually you played in the NFL, and you're a head coach, of course, at John Milledge. You guys have won a couple of state championships. He actually had the all-time winning streak at 62 games in a row, ended last year. But so just a lot of success for you as a coach. But so talk about your background and how you kind of got into this, and just give the viewers a little bit of information about you.
Grew up here in Milledgeville. Went to school here at John Milledge from ninth grade to 12th grade. Kind of didn't have a whole lot of offers, a whole lot of recruiting deals going on. It's kind of under the radar type recruit. I always thought I was a linebacker, but thanks to my mom, I wasn't quite tall enough. And then I always wanted to go to Georgia. That kind of wasn't in the cards coming out my senior year. And which was probably a good thing. The good Lord was looking out for me, because during that time is when they signed that linebackers class of, Tony Gilbert, Boss Bailey. They had Will Witherspoon. Kendra Bell was there. I mean, there was some dudes, playing linebacker at Georgia at the time, and probably would have got lost in the wash, and had decided I was probably just going to go to Middle Georgia. They had a really good junior college program at the time. Just, GMC still got a really good one here in town, but I wanted to get out of Milledgeville, wanted to get out of town and go play ball somewhere else. And went on a recruiting visit over there, met Dennis Rowland, and Coach Caldwell was my running backs coach, and they wanted me to play fullback. And, at the time we went to visit over in Cochran, and that's where I was going to go. And my plan was to go play in Middle Georgia for 2 years, and then I was going to play so good, Georgia was going to give me a scholarship, So anyway, we went on a visit over there, and then two days later, Coach Rowland calls me and asked me if I want to come play for him. And I said, well, yes, sir, I do. He said, well, it's not going to be in Cochran. It's going to be in Bolivar, Missouri. So it's that's a long way away from Millersville, Georgia. It's about a 12-hour ride. So, he wanted me to play fullback, and I said, Coach, I'm a linebacker. He said, well, we're looking to get the fullback, about 20 carries a game. I said, well, I'll be a fullback then, So went up there and we ran the veer. We ran a lot of different things, and you got to love football to play that far from home and play in the snow, and it's tough. And it kind of made me realize how much I love the game, and that's where I fell in love with the weight room, and just spending time doing things like that, because there wasn't a whole lot to do up there. Played 2 years at that D2 school, and then transferred to Georgia and walked on, and was lucky enough to earn a scholarship there, and then got drafted in the 7th round by Pittsburgh, and had a cup of coffee in the NFL. Was on the practice squad in Pittsburgh for 2 years, and then was up in Indianapolis not quite a year. From January to those final cuts, and just at the time, not really even knowing I wanted to coach. Looking back, seeing all the things that I learned and soaked up during that time that was kind of beneficial to me. Like even last year, going through some stuff, because I get blamed for being a hoarder, and I was going through some stuff, and I still had practice scripts from when we were in Indianapolis, and just kind of looking at how practice was scripted, how it was kind of drawn out back then. It was kind of interesting to see. We still do some of the same stuff, and but it was, just kind of things like that was kind of teaching me along the way, not even knowing I was being taught.
Yeah. I mean, so talk about what was it like, playing, in the NFL. Of course, that's just an amazing feat to have just within itself, but, playing for two great organizations, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Indianapolis Colts, guys like Ben Roethlisberger, all those guys, and then Peyton Manning and Marvin Harrison. So talk about what it was like, being up there with those guys.
I think for a lot of guys, the worst thing in the world is to get a little taste of it, because you get a little taste of the NFL, and then you spend another, some guys spend another year, another 2 years, another 3 years, still trying to just train, still trying to chase that dream. And it's crazy. I mean, you can see guys that have been cut multiple times and then come back and still make it. I mean, you look at James Harrison. I mean, he's a perfect story. I was up there when he was up there, and he got cut multiple times and comes back and he's a daggum All-Pro. And he's an unbelievable story in itself. But just being around those guys and learning, how they approach the game, being in the same draft class with Troy Polamalu, who's an unbelievable man, just, aside from being a football player, just seeing how those guys approach the game and how they worked, and, they're professionals for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't imagine the, experience you had up there, just, being around those legends, and how the work ethic probably soaked up from them. And I can imagine Peyton was probably like that too, so, right. First to be there, last to leave, right? So absolutely. So Coach, yes, you got the John Milledge. You start off as assistant coach. You guys actually went 0-10 first year. So talk about, how that was, and then when you eventually became the head coach, what was like transitioning that culture to eventually what it would become now and all the success you guys will end up having. But talk about how you had to transition there.
Yeah, I mean, I talked about, the worst thing is getting a taste of the NFL. So I once that was over, I still trained, I still did some stuff, and then kind of got into some personal training, was personal training some high school athletes, and was really falling in love with that. Really liked, getting back into the game. But at the same time, I was still kind of trying to stay in somewhat shape in case the phone rang, and yeah. So I was working at the recreation department here in town, doing a bunch of stuff, and then this job came open, and was approached about it, coming in, and me thinking I knew everything. I was ready to just come in and say, hey, I'll be the head coach, and but the good Lord was looking after me, and so was Coach Don Marchman. God rest his soul. I mean, he was my head coach as a freshman. And then he came back, and he was here for a long time, and came in, and he was the head coach for 2 years. My first 2 years an assistant, to kind of let me learn what I needed to learn, that I thought I already knew that I didn't. And he kind of let me just sit back and learn that first year, and kind of let me make some mistakes, that I had to learn from, which was good. I mean, because I kind of equate it to, if me and you ride in a car, to a different city, 10 times, and you're always in the passenger seat, you're never really going to know how to get there, but if you're in the driver's seat, you're going to know how to get there. So he let me get in the driver's seat, and we took a bunch of losses that first year. But, we had to, simplify it, because I remember coming in and saying, we're going to do this week 1 because we know their adjustment's going to be this week 2, and blah, 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 blah. And we were trying to be way over analytical on the whole thing. And he said, man, you still got to understand these are high school kids, and they're not looking into this thing as deep as you are. And we were throwing too much at them by far. And I thought that the harder you work, the more wins you would get. And that's not saying we don't work hard now. It's just saying, we were trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and it wasn't working. And we just thought the harder you kept banging that thing, it was going to fit, and it wouldn't. Yeah. So we had to kind of step back and simplify it, and keep this thing simple until they got it. Until they understood it. And once that took off, the culture changed. And everybody, went from, hoping to win to expecting to win. So then that's the big difference.
Yeah, and absolutely. And like you said, keeping things, obviously the aspect of hard work is still important, and because you guys would have done what you'd done if you hadn't, but also keeping it to the point where, hey, it needs to be able to be understood what is asked of our players, right? And I think now a lot of coaches, even, at the professional level, do this, especially college and high school, but even at the professional level, they try to make football harder than it needs to be. And try to get your players with these complicated different schemes and play calls and all this and that because it's like they're trying to outsmart the coach. Like but you have to talk about how important it is to make it simple enough for the players to understand and execute it. Instead of it just being, too complicated.
Yeah, I mean, it really doesn't matter. You're not going to get any more points on Friday night if you know more than the other coach. If your players can't perform better than the other players. So, and that's a lot too, is kind of, you don't always have to be the smartest guy in the room. I mean, you've got to be the guy in the room that can get his ideas and what he wants ran the right way to his guys, the best way, and sometimes you have to do it different, and we go back to, when we're installing, we'll show video, we'll put it on the board, and we'll talk about it. There's 3 or 4 different ways we have to do it because you go back to like when you're a teacher and all this stuff. I mean, some people are audio learners, some people are visual learners, and it's learning, man. It's just like you're in a classroom, and some guys get it different. Some guys, can watch it and learn it better. Some guys have to draw it. So we try to approach it every way possible. And we approach it as kind of like in the spring and in the summer, like we'll start over, like treat it almost like mini camps, like NFL mini camps, where you start from day one with your install. But each time you start over, it gets faster and faster. So when we start out and start teaching power the first day, it's super slow. And then day one of the summer, it's a little faster than it was in the spring. And then you kind of pick up from there and keep rolling. And it all depends, too, on how old your team is, how many returning starters you have coming back. And we always try to teach the kids not just play. We always call it like the essence of the play. You got to learn the essence of the play. Like if you're an offensive guard, you should know what the center's doing and the tackle's doing just because of what you're doing. You shouldn't just do. I think high school kids get caught up in, like, if you draw a play, an offense on the board and say, hey, I want you to draw this play. You should be able to draw everybody's responsibility if you know the essence of the play. So it's almost like taking a test. So we try to kind of make you understand why we're running that play. If they understand that, then they can be a lot better too on a Friday night and know why we made the adjustment. Sometimes they can suggest the adjustment. But you obviously want your quarterback to be the one to see it, and he's got to be an extension of you. And whatever you decide to run. And each year is different. Some years we have to teach it a different way. Some guys get it different than the others.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I was playing, coach was like, hey, because I played offensive line in high school. So, I played both guard and tackle. So, on both sides, it's like, hey, coach, hey, you need to know, if you're playing left guard, you know what the tackle's doing, you know what the center's doing, you need to go the right guards and the right tackle, and so on and so forth. Because, if not, everybody's going to be bumping into each other, right? So that's like you said, the essence of the play, not just your assignment, but what everybody is doing. Heck, you might even know what the running back and receivers are supposed to be doing, so it's like, hey, like you said, you should be able to draw it up. But good stuff, Coach. So talk about, obviously you're a state champion, everything like that. So just talk about how, the pressure that comes with that, and being, expected to win all the time. Because you talked about that earlier, and, how that could, get into your mind as a coach. Because people don't realize, that's a hard thing to do. So talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's, some people always say, the hardest thing to do is to win when you're expected to win. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's the hardest thing to do, because you're still pretty good if you're expected to win. But
yeah,
but just, mentally, it can weigh on you. You feel like people are against you. You just kind of start getting that feeling, and it is what it is. But I've always been like a player that when I was a player, just try to find something to put a chip on your shoulder to make you work a little harder. And we try to do that with our team, try to create things. Sometimes you have to make them up, sometimes you don't. Of the kind of just give you, some people call it bulletin board material or whatever. But also it creates pressure. It creates pressure that you have to deal with. But Kirby said pressure's a privilege, because there ain't a lot of pressure on these teams that aren't real good. So it kind of comes with the territory. And if you want to be good, you want to be great, you got to learn how to deal with the pressure, and just kind of keep rolling.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I understand. When we had our little run from around 17 to 21, after that, it's like we were just like, hey, Elko should be here. Like, they should be in state championship every year. They should be winning state championship. It's like, once you're doing that, you know how it is. And I can only imagine for a coach. Even for us as players, it's hard. But being the head coach, so I know it would be an immense amount of pressure to deal with. So yeah, but Coach, awesome. So talk about you guys and what you're doing right now. It's the off season. You're looking towards 2024. What's some things you're looking to get better at as a team, and what you guys are focusing on right now?
We're trying to see how we can make it even more simple. Because this obviously, if it's more simple, we can be a little faster. We can play a little faster, but at the same time, everybody loves to go no huddle and play fast. But when you're using the athletes we're using, we have to sit back and look at it like, if we have 7 or 8 guys playing both ways, we kind of benefit from the 8 or 10 seconds they get to stand in the huddle and catch their breath. That's things we're kind of trying to look at this time of year. Like, is it worth doing it there, or is it worth being having a call where we can just go no huddle when we want to go no huddle and not be 100% no huddle? Just different things like that can win you a ball game. Different things that, like we do on a Thursday. We'll practice something on a Thursday every Thursday of the year and may not use it but once every 2 or 3 years. But the kids know it. They know it's going to fall in that script on a Thursday, and they know we're going to do it. So if it were to happen in a game, we always practice on Thursday, kickoff after a safety or kickoff return after a safety. That way, there's never a question when it happens in a game, where do I line up? Treat the 30 as the 50. It's just stuff like that comes out of your mouth that the kids understand and they know, and they hear it on a daily basis. That's what we're spending right now, looking at how do we change things like that, as well as grinding in the weight room. These guys getting in the weight room, trying to get faster, getting them ready to run a little track. We got a lot of guys finishing up basketball. They've already finished wrestling, because we got most of our guys play multiple sports, whether it's baseball, soccer, track, basketball, wrestling, everything. And we work around that, but they still, get in the weight room every day and get their stuff done. So it's fun. And we feel like our summer weight program kind of separates us from a lot of people too, because of how hard we push these guys. And they know it, how hard it is. Now, whether it's harder than everybody we play, it doesn't matter as long as they think that when they line up on a Friday night,
Yeah.
But, we make them think it's pretty hard, because it is. And because we're trying to train guys to be able to play both ways, even if they don't play both ways. So, and there's always stuff you can learn. There's always stuff we can kind of tweak. So also spending this time, going to clinics, watching stuff online, and doing some different daily stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. They say football is a year-round sport, and it is. You got the season, you got the summer, you got, the off season. Obviously, January now is the time we're building that conditioning, get in the weight room, and that's so important. That's huge. I always say this, the weight room is really where you build your team at, as far as physical and mental toughness. So it's important, very important to be in the weight room, lifting, get it in. So talk about, Coach, now when you guys get through the season, what's a normal practice like for you guys? What's that kind of like, and how you and your coaching staff kind of assemble that for the players? We're fortunate enough to have all of our guys,
report to us, and we have a 7-period day. We're not on a block schedule. So every period is about 45, 50 minutes long. So we get them in 7th period every day of the year. So they're up here with us at 2:25, and we'll either start, on Mondays. That's kind of our longest day. We'll get, some film done. We'll start that during that period. Then we're installing, showing this, showing that outside, kind of banging a little bit, and then get a lift in. And then Tuesday's a little shorter, Wednesday's a little shorter, and then Thursday we're in helmets, helmets only. And listen, it's kind of crazy because all these old guys come back and watch practice, and some of them are coaching for me now. But, the last 4 or 5 years, once we get done with camp, because we're still able to have a camp in our league. So our school doesn't start, till second week of August. So usually that first week of August, we'll do somewhat of a camp, where we still feel like it builds, team camaraderie, team bonds, stuff like that. We'll practice like twice one day, once the next. We can do a two a day and then a 1 a day. And then, because we used to spend like a week where you'd spend the night, and I started killing that thinking the kids hated it. Well, they got mad at me because they loved to spend the night. So I think the only people that hated to spend the night part were the coaches. So now what we do is we'll spend, I think it's 2 nights or 3 nights. That's it. We'll spend up here at the school, we'll sleep in the gym, and they have a good time. We'll do, skits about coaches and all this stuff one night, and then we'll have, team building stuff, like some stuff we got from Coach Rick, and just different things like that to kind of give us what we need to kind of bring each other together. Because like I've been on some good teams, I've been on some great teams as far as player and coach. And the teams that like each other are pretty good, but the teams that love each other are going to be the teams you can't beat. And that's where we're trying to get these guys to where they love each other. So, I mean, that's kind of giving you that information is what I'm saying is when those old guys come back, they'll see, like, once we get done with camp, I mean, we rarely are in full pads. Like, we're in helmets, shoulder pads, and shorts, and, we'll wear a girdle under there, so we're in shells pretty much.
Yeah.
We're not in full pads hardly, the whole year. So we don't tackle to the ground once the season starts, depending on our numbers, but we'll do a tackle circuit, once or twice a week. We're still teaching tackling, just not going to the ground. We do all that stuff that first 2 weeks of August. But, because we can't afford to lose a single guy, much less 1 or 2 guys. And, these old guys on my staff told me, they say, man, John Milledge ain't on your schedule. That you don't need to beat yourself. So we look at some different things. And, obviously early on in the year, you can see where you need to work, some tackle stuff you need to work. So we try to limit that stuff, but we try to fly around and get as many reps in practice as we can. And we're always do special teams every day, but everybody cross-train. So we'll have an offensive day. Half of practice is offense, half of practice is defense. So we do that every day, and you rock and roll. So no practice is longer than an hour and 45, right at 2 hours. So I think you lose them if you're out there long in that anyway.
Yeah,
so
I can speak from experience. Yes, we're done by we're done. If it hits 2, dude, we're done like 2 hours. I mean, yeah, it's kind of like you're not getting our full. You're not. But yeah, I mean, and practice is crucial, right? I mean, you can't, like I grew up learning this, playing football. Like, you can't just skip the Friday, or whatever you're playing. You can't in NFL. You can't skip the Sunday. You can't skip the Saturday. Like, you have to go. You have to practice. Practice is important. It sucks, but you got to do it. Because it makes you better and you learn, and it's just each and every week you're improving inch by inch, and eventually, you end up where you want to be. If you're doing what you got to do. So, yeah, absolutely, Coach. That pretty much wraps us up, Coach. One last thing, though. What would you say to any young coaches out there who are trying to get into this field, become a head coach one day? Just advice you would give them from your experience.
There's a lot of stuff, man. I mean, have a plan. and kind of have a plan of where you want to be. But don't get stuck in, I've got to be here or I got to be there. I think Nick Saban said it at one time, be where your feet are.
Yeah.
Don't always coach thinking about the next job. If I'm the running backs coach at John Milledge, I'm gonna be the best running backs coach at John Milledge I can be. If I'm the D-line coach at Elko, I'm gonna be the best D-line coach at Elko I can be. I'm not gonna do that thinking I'm doing that to do this next. But obviously you got to think about your career. But I think too, I think we get too caught up in how quick can I climb the ladder, and some of these guys will climb it quick and then get knocked back down. And, I talked about it earlier on, with guests, but learn football, and don't just stay in a box. Don't just be that running backs coach. If you want to be an offensive coordinator, you better learn how to coach receivers, and you better learn how to coach the offensive line, because you're eventually going to want to be a head coach. And at the end of the day, is your name on the line, when it all comes down to it. So you've got to know what's going on in all facets of the game.
Yeah. No, you said it. No, absolutely. Like you said, just, got to get in where you fit in, right? And just do the best at what you're doing. Be the best at your job, and God will lead you to where He wants you to be. I firmly believe that. So it's just a matter of doing what you can do best. So that's well said, Coach. But we appreciate your time on the Coach's Corner edition of the Jason Down podcast. Coach JT Wall, John Milledge Academy, state champion, former NFL player. Glad to have him on talking some ball with us. Great insight, Coach. We appreciate you coming on the show today.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me.
Of course. We'll see you next time, Coach.
All right, buddy. See you.